Well, greetings to all of you fine patriots that are assembled here this morning to demonstrate your support for America's deployed warfighters. Welcome to the 321st consecutive Friday Assembly of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. Greeting. Now, there are probably some of you present today that recall receiving correspondence from the President of the United States that began with that word, greeting. The letter went on to say that you are hereby ordered for induction into the armed forces of the United States and to report at Post Somewhere, USA, on some date at 7 a.m. for forwarding to an Armed Forces induction station. For some of you, that was pucker time. But you complied with what you were ordered to do, served your country honorably, went on to make a life for yourselves. But those memories still linger, some good, some not so good. But one thing is certain. While serving, you became a member of a new family. You know, one of the biggest falsehoods ever told is blood makes you family. No, blood does not make you family. Just like smiles and handshakes don't make you friends. Blood makes you related. Loyalty, trust, shared values, mutual respect makes you family. And while serving this nation, those were the tenets that we live by: loyalty, trust, shared values, and a mutual respect for one another. Well, after all of those years since hanging up those uniforms, most of us have found families. One of those families is the East Valley Red Friday Patriots, a family that is rich in loyalty, trust, shared values, and mutual respect. And unhesitatingly, I'll tell you that I am ecstatic about being a member of this family of patriots. You are the best. You know, speaking of family, most of us here live in 55-plus active adult communities that offer a variety of amenities and activities and camaraderie. Hank and I have a number of friends who live in our 55-plus community in Mesa. In fact, two of our friends that have lived there for a number of years are quite elderly people. Bubba's a widower, Gertha's a widow, and they've known each other for quite a long time. Well, one evening, we had a community supper in our big activity center, and our two senior friends were sitting at a table of 8 across from one another, and as the meal went on, I noticed that Bubba was taking a few admiring glances at Gertha. He finally gathered the courage to ask her. He said, "Gertha, will you marry me?" Well, after about 6 seconds of consideration, Gertha said, "Yes, Bubba." In front of all these people, I'm saying, "I'll marry you." And witnessing that exchange, those of us that were sitting at that table were ecstatic for these quite senior residents. That was a happy moment. So the meal ended. And with a few more pleasant exchanges, those two senior lovebirds left and went on to their respective homes. Well, as I understand the story, the next morning, Bubba was somewhat troubled. Did Gertha say yes, or did she say no? He simply could not remember. Try as he might, he just couldn't recall. Not even a faint memory. So with a bit of anxiety, Bubba went to the telephone and called Gertha. First, he explained that he didn't remember as well as he used to. Then he reviewed the lovely past evening dinner at the ballroom, and as he gained a little bit more courage, he said, Gertha, when I asked you if you'd marry me, did you say yes or did you say no? Well, Bubba was delighted to hear her say, why, Bubba, I said yes, yes, I'll marry you. And I meant it with all my heart. Then she said, I'm so damn glad you called because I couldn't remember who had asked me. Let's see if I can remember the pledge to Old Glory. Will you join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, thank you. I'm elated to have a few guests that joined us for the first time this morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce them briefly. Bonnie Ragsdale. Bonnie, will you stand, please? Bonnie, if I'm not mistaken, I think that your hubby, Eric, came here for the first time last week. Is that correct, Eric? You decided to bring Bonnie along? You had to go check us out first, right? Well, you guys are residents over at Leisure World, and we're really glad to have you with us now. I'm just curious, Bonnie, you guys are relatively new to the community? No? And you moved here from where? From Indiana. Midwesterners. We're glad to have you with us. Join us anytime. I did not want to hear that. But we're glad to have you guys with us. Thank you for joining us. Over in the same location.
Yes.
John Merkel. John, you are a United States Navy veteran, 2004 to 2010, 6 years of active duty.
That's correct.
And your sponsor's name is Ted Confederick. You own up to that.
Yes, I do.
So your MOS in the United States Navy was what?
I was a nuclear machinist mate on the USS Enterprise.
We've got a couple of nuclear guys here, and we've got a USS Enterprise veteran here that served 8 years in the United States Navy. Glad to have you with us today, John. Join us
Thanks
anytime.
for having me.
Also, Chris Arbogast. Chris is also a United States Navy veteran, 62 to 66. You were an electrician in the Navy.
Yes.
What did you electrify?
Everything we could.
Anything you could. You deployed?
Yeah. No.
You
We
deployed
went
to
at-
sea?
Yes.
I
was
would
at sea
think
duty
so. In that
over
4
3
years, you went out somewhere.
Yeah. We carried Polaris missiles
Polaris missiles.
to the submarines.
And what was your job? You were an electrician. You were down below?
Always.
Always. Did you stay a little far away from those missiles?
No. Sometimes I had to be in there with them.
Well, good for you, man. I wouldn't think that an electrician want to get anywhere near them. You touch one of those things and it might go off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glad to have you with us, Chris. Thank you for joining us. Also, Don Boyer. Don is a United States Air Force veteran that served 1966 to 69. You were on nukes as well. You serviced nukes, right?
I'm sorry.
You serviced nukes? Well, we got several.
No, we supplied nukes.
Oh, well, this says service nukes here, so I figured that you were out disassembling these things and
No,
going
we
through.
supplied them to the Germans.
What?
Yeah.
In
I was on a
1966?
German air base.
In 1966, we were supplying nukes to the Germans.
We were on the base with them. Yes. We didn't give them the weapons. We had 4 Q areas. We had our own planes and our own pilots. But we used their base.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we've now got a partner here for Larry May back here who serviced nukes as well in the United States Air Force. He's sitting right behind you there. You guys need to put your heads together. Okay. Don, glad to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. Can I have a hoo-ah for these newcomers? Thank you, thank you. By the way, this is a special date for Nan Molina. Nan, raise your hand. Nan, on this date, 25 July 1978, raised her hand and enlisted in the United States Army 47 years ago. Congratulations. You know, this coming Sunday, July 27, America will commemorate National Korean War Veterans Armistice. Falls on July 27 each year, and this observance recognizes the 6.8 million men and women of the Korean War era who served our nation worldwide during that particular era, and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. This year will mark the 72nd anniversary of the Korean War Armistice. The period is considered the Korean War era, generally is June 27, 1950 through January 31, 1955. And while the actual fighting concluded with an armistice on 27 July 1953, the broader period encompassing the war and its aftermath, including repatriation efforts, extends to January 31, 1955. Now, per the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, fewer than 760,000 Korean War era veterans are alive today. And by 2030, the aging Korean War veteran population is projected to fall below 200,000. Median age for a Korean War veteran today is 93. They make up about 4% of the living United States veterans. Now, as we reflect back on that conflict, the Korean War began on 25 June 1950 with some 75,000 soldiers from the North Korean People's Army that poured across the 38th parallel, the boundary between the Soviet-backed Democratic People's Republic of Korea to the north and the pro-Western Republic of Korea to the south. During that 3-year war, which lasted from June 25, 50 to July 27, 53, active duty service members faced unique risk and experiences that set them apart from previous generations. This armistice observance presents the opportunity to remember and honor their service. After being colonized by Japan, the southern part of the Korean Peninsula was liberated on August 15, 1945, just following the war. Then, 5 years later, 1950, Communist North Korea, which was backed by the Soviet Union, made an invasion into democratic South Korea. The U.S. promptly deployed troops to support South Korea during this devastating war of attrition. Both sides fought to wear down the enemy and gain complete control of that territory. After 3 years, an armistice, a truce, was signed to stop the fighting, and the region since has remained divided. The signed armistice established a complete cessation of all hostilities in Korea by all armed forces. That was to be enforced by the commanders of both sides. The armistice is, however, only a ceasefire between military forces rather than an agreement between governments to normalize relations. The agreement was signed by U.S. Army Lieutenant General William Harrison, Jr., who represented the United Nations Command, and North Korean General Nam Il, who represented the Korean People's Army, and the Chinese People's Volunteer Army. The arrangement was designed to ensure a complete cessation of hostilities and a complete cessation of all armed forces in Korea until a final peaceful settlement might be achieved. The armistice established the Korean Demilitarized Zone, a border between the two nations. It was enforced with a ceasefire and ultimately the return of prisoners of war. The fighting resulted in 36,574 in-theater casualties for the United States. More than 103,000 U.S. service members were wounded in action, per the Department of Defense. As of to date, there are still 7,578 individuals whose fate in the Korean War remains unaccounted for. The war claimed the lives of millions of Korean soldiers and civilians on both sides, and hundreds of thousands of Chinese soldiers. Now, although the U.S. military led the United Nations Expeditionary Force in Korea, its involvement was tied only to a United Nations Security Council resolution, because the United Nations itself cannot declare war. Consequently, the conflict in Korea did not technically constitute a war. Given the fact that no peace treaty was ever signed, those who served received a very different treatment upon their return to the United States. The Korean War thwarted the expansion of communism in Asia. It advanced the battlefield treatment of the wounded and saw the desegregation of the United States Army. In the Korean War, the role of helicopters used by the U.S. Armed Forces was greatly expanded from that of World War II. Helicopters were used for medical evacuations, troop transport, and resupply missions. They also played a role in reconnaissance, search and rescue, and even some limited direct combat support roles. In fact, the Korean War marked a significant turning point in the use of helicopters, showcasing their versatility and their ability to operate in very challenging terrain. From that war, the Republic of Korea has emerged as a vibrant democracy, an economic giant in Asia, and a strong, independent, and respected voice among nations. Though the war claimed many lives, some benefits, including advancements in technology and medicine, were made during that 37-month conflict. Technology advancements include the introduction of jet-on-jet combat and advancements in radar and night vision technologies. Military medical advancements that emerged from the war primarily focused on improving the speed and effectiveness of care for battlefield casualties. Key innovations include the introduction of Mobile Army Surgical Hospitals, MASH, helicopter evacuation, advancements in blood transfusion technologies, and antibiotic treatments. These advancements significantly reduced the mortality rates among treated soldiers. So, this anniversary marks the end of a war, but it also commemorates the beginning of a long and prosperous peace. In 7 decades, the Republic of Korea has become one of the world's largest economies and one of America's closest allies. Together, we've built a partnership that remains a bedrock of stability throughout the Pacific. And that legacy belongs to the service members who served and fought for freedom 72 years ago, and the men and women who preserve it today. Compared to previous wars, theirs was a different kind of homecoming. Unlike the Second World War, Korea did not galvanize our country. Most of these vets did not return to parades and celebrations. Among many Americans tired of war, it seemed there was a desire to forget and just move on. Each year, on July 27, National Korean War Veterans Armistice Day provides a moment for reflection on the service and sacrifices of Americans during that conflict. On July 27, our nation pauses to remember the troops who hit the beaches when communist forces were pressing south, who pushed back and fought their way onto the north through hard mountainous terrain and bitter cold. We remember ordinary men and women who showed extraordinary courage through 3 long years of war, fighting far from home to defend a country they never knew, people they had never met. God bless our Korean War veterans, and let us never forget their sacrifice for our great nation. At this time, I would like to ask Karen Confederate to come forward. Karen is a distinguished member of this Red Friday Patriots group and also serves as the treasurer of the Apache Trail Chapter, National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. The chapter wishes to take this opportunity to recognize our Korean War era veterans. Done.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Good morning. Good morning. On the 72nd anniversary of the Korean Armistice Agreement, we pay tribute to those who served during the Korean War era and those who fought and died on the Korean Peninsula. The conflict between North and South Korea is often referred to as the Forgotten War, and it was overshadowed in historical size and scope by World War II and the Vietnam War. However, for the servicemen and women that lived through it, for the Gold Star families that lost their loved ones there, and for those that keep the candle lit for more than 7,400 POWs, MIAs, still unaccounted for, excuse me, the Korean War is still fresh in their minds. On July 27, 1953, U.S., North Korean, and Chinese military commanders signed the Korean Armistice Agreement, bringing the Korean War to a close. A total of 36,574 Americans lost their lives, and more than 103,000 were wounded in action during the course of the bloody 3-year war on the Korean Peninsula. The ceasefire came after 2 years of negotiations, the longest negotiated armistice in history, but did not end the hostilities completely. The majority of almost 750 deaths of American service members following the July 27, 1953 armistice was the result of post-war North Korean hostile actions. To the millions of U.S. military personnel who served in the Korean War era and in the theater of operations, and the millions that have served there since, the members of the Daughters of the American Revolution join a grateful nation in remembering your service and honoring your sacrifice in defense of generations of people living on freedom's frontier. This Red Friday group is privileged to have at least 6 Korean War era veterans as members. We know that several of those members are either winter visitors to the Valley or they are physically unable to be present this morning. That said, if you are a Korean War era veteran who served any time during the period of June 1950 to January 1955, please come forward. If you are unable to do so, please raise your hand and we will come to you. We have a certificate for you. Come on up, Rosemary. Our certificate reads, the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, Apache Trail Chapter, NSDAR, joins a grateful nation to honor Rosemary, United States Army, 1954 to 1956, in recognition of valor, service, and sacrifice during the Korean War. And it is signed by our regent, Kelly McDonald, who is on vacation, but she'll be here next week. So we will give you that certificate. Now, I do have a confession. We made a little error. This is dated July 25th, 2026, because we Daughters of the American Revolution are so excited for the America 250 celebration that started on July 4th this year and will end next year in 2026, that 2026 just got typed on the certificate. So, Rosemary, we will get you a corrected copy. And for those who are not able to be here today, we will also we'll get them their certificate in the mail. So thank you very much. Oh, Ken.
Yes, we'll have to go to Ken.
Okay. Do you want me to walk it back? Ken Anderson? This is for Ken Anderson, United States Army, 1953 to 1954.
Okay,
There
it's
you go.
54 to 56.
Oh, 54 to 56. We have another correction. Okay.
You're on a roll.
Okay, we'll get that to you, but you can keep this one for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last week, I announced that today we were going to have a show and tell. an opportunity for some of you to display one of your military treasures or memorabilia and be able to relate a little bit about its significance to you or to your family. So, to launch this first ever East Valley Red Friday Patriots Show and Tell, I'm going to call on the patriarch of this group of patriots, Dave Helfer. Dave is the gentleman who started this whole program, and I think he rightfully deserves the first shot at our first show and tell. So Dave, you got the floor.
I said this was show and tell, so I'm going to tell you a little story. Can you all hear me? Okay, I'm going to tell you all a little story. More? Okay, so a kangaroo walked onto an aircraft carrier. Looking back on October 3rd, 1964, when the Enterprise returned to its home port in Norfolk from an around-the-world cruise. The aircraft carrier tied up at Pier 12, then officials spoke, bands played, and many of the children were impressed with the big show. Where's the kangaroo, they called. Matilda was a gift from Australia's Taronga Park Zoo to the zoo in Norfolk. She had boarded the Enterprise as the ship sailed from Sydney. On the final leg of its trip, she was the only female on board a ship with 5,000, and she quickly became the mascot. As her caretaker, Chief Petty Officer Benny Jewell of Virginia Beach prepared to lead the kangaroo down the gangplank. The band had struck up Waltzing Matilda, and the ship's, excuse me a second. Let's see, where was I? The band struck up Waltzing Matilda, and the ship's loudspeaker roared, "Kangaroo departing." Matilda gazed at the thousands of upturned faces on the pier, at the bands and the cameras, and she panicked and fled, with Jewel hanging on to the end of her leash. A large cardboard container pierced with holes was safely brought on deck, and Matilda nestled into it, and she was carried down the gangplank. She was carried down the gangplank in utter privacy. She quickly settled in her new home, and over the years she was visited regularly by Enterprise crewmen, which would present her with a carrot cake. On the wall of the stall hung a brass plaque engraved with her name, as well as her history and affiliation with the sailors. Let's see, kangaroos don't have a very long lifetime, and Matilda died in 1980. That's the story.
You, Dave, appreciate that. That's a good story. That's a damn good story. Richard Bartlow is not here today. He and his wife Kathy are on vacation, but he asked me to direct your attention to the uniform that you see here on display. Now, this uniform belongs to a friend of Richard. His name is Thomas Biloevec, who served from 1953 to 1955 as a corporal in the Korean War with the 1st Battalion 84th Field Artillery Regiment, 9th Infantry Division. You'll notice that Tom was the recipient of the Army of Occupation Medal and the National Defense Service Medal, as well as both units, the artillery regiment that he served in and the infantry division he served in, were recipients of the Presidential Unit Citation. Now, the U.S. Army officially introduced the Eisenhower or Ike jacket as standard issue in November of 1944. It was designated as the M1944 wool field jacket. This thing is heavy. It is uncomfortable. You would not wear this in Arizona. Believe me. Well, this Ike jacket remained in service until the late 1950s with a general phase-out that began in 1956, and it was officially gone from the Army inventory by October 1960. Thomas recently moved to the far side of the valley, but I do want to send a shout out to him for offering his uniform to Richard for display. So, Tom, this is to you. Okay, we have a MRE up here. Who does this belong to? Is this you, Les? Come on up. Tell us a little bit about this MRE, Les.
Okay, how many of you, I think most of you probably know what an MRE is. How many do not know what an MRE is? Okay, there's a few, and I'll tell you what it is. It is this right here is a meal ready to eat out in the field. Okay, now I acquired this some years ago, 5 years ago or so, at the IHOP Red Friday breakfast. I don't remember the circumstances as to how I received it, but I received it, and I wanted to, because I received it with a certificate, I wanted to mount it on my wall. So I got a picture frame, and I Velcroed it to the picture frame, and it fell right off. It was too heavy, and it wouldn't work. So this is full of bubble wrap right now. Okay, not bubble gum, bubble wrap. That's the meal ready to eat, and I'm going to go through quickly what's in it because I did open it to put the bubble wrap in, and I have each and every item here to show you. The first thing is an appetizer, okay? And this is a, a wheat snack bread. It's 2 ounces and has 180 calories, and that's kind of important to know. Okay, next, on your bread, you can put some peanut butter. Okay, and this real peanut butter in here. I didn't open any of these things. This is 1.5 ounces of peanut butter, 250 calories, also important. Okay, the next thing once you get open, I guess, I don't know if this is your salad to start or something, but this is applesauce. Another bag of fresh food in there. Okay, never been opened. It's 4.5 ounces, 130 calories. And what's interesting about this is if you don't like it, this has a to and from to mail it home, I guess. You got to put a stamp on it, though. I thought that was kind of funny. The next delicacy in here is your entree. Okay, and this gives a description of how to eat it, how to heat it, and all that kind of stuff. And it is vegetable lasagna, 240 calories, 8 ounces of lasagna is in here, okay? It's full, okay? Then we have, let's see. Come on out, what is this? Oh, a spoon. Okay, so you eat with a spoon. That's good for the applesauce. I don't know about the lasagna. No calories in the spoon. Okay, then this little packet has other equipment to eat with. Salt. It has some Tabasco sauce. It has 2 tablets to sterilize your water from the river, I guess. And then there's a package of something in here, kind of looks like gauze, and I can't tell what it is. So that's that to help you eat. Okay, then there's 2 more items. I guess, yeah, this is your dessert. This is delicious vanilla pound cake. Now, how old that is, I don't know. And that's 2.5 ounces of cake, 310 calories. And the last item you can top it off with is your French vanilla cappuccino. Cappuccino. Oh, there's one other item that's in there, and it's your stove for heating the water. And I'm not sure how this works, but if you put water in the bag, and then I guess you break the capsules, and it generates heat and warms up your stuff a little bit. So you've had your Frappuccino. That was 6 fluid ounces. And there was something else in the bag with the pills, with the tablets, and it was a tube of powdered sugar-free lemonade. Okay, it's odd that it's sugar-free because on one of these packs it tells you how many calories you should have a day if you're out in the field and fighting or crawling around or whatever you're doing, you know, and you need at least 1,200 calories per meal, and this one is 1,230 calories when you add up all those up. So that, I would guess, is either your lunch or your dinner. I'm not sure because of the lasagna. Sure as hell not your breakfast.
Thank you, Les. Thank you, thank you. Interesting, to say the least. We have some memorabilia here, apparently from World War II. Who does this belong to? Ted, is this yours? You want to come up, please? Thank you.
So Karen told me about the show and tell, and I was trying to think of something to bring. I have 2 German Nazi decorations that my Uncle Ted removed from a Nazi soldier in the battlefield in Europe. One is called the Wound Badge. That's the one in Dick's left hand. That's the equivalent of our Purple Heart for a Nazi soldier. The other is the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. It was authorized 1 September 39 till 8 May 1945. It says, awarded for outstanding bravery in the face of the enemy and for brilliant service in command of troops. A requirement was that the recipient had previously received both the first and the second class of the Iron Cross. And the research I did said that in the entirety of the Second World War, there were only 7,318 of those ever awarded. So I just thought I'd bring that and let's take a look at it. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Ted. Let's see. Who is the proud owner of these items right here? Britt, come on up. Tell us what you got there, Eric.
Mostly helicopter-related things, except for one here. Where'd it go? Here it is. This is an Air Force thing that they used in Korea and Vietnam. 1 ounce of lead with very sharp fins on the back. They dropped thousands of these. It's a silent bomb, or dumb bomb that they called them. I couldn't imagine being out in the bush and having all these come down. You couldn't hear them. It's no explosive thing, but the fins on the back you can shave with. They're so sharp. And they used to drop these thousands of these at a time at the end of Korea and in Vietnam. It's a mock-up of a M79 grenade. They had an M79 grenade handheld launcher, and they also shot these off the front of Hueys helicopters. They call it the chunker that was on the front of the helicopter. This is a hunk of main rotor mast off of a Huey. It's very heavy, this one section. This is where the main rotor sits on here. And this part here is what holds the main rotor on. It goes on at 1,250 pounds of torque that they put that on with. It's a mast nut, but they figured if it ever come off, they changed it to a Jesus nut, because that thing comes off, Jesus, I'm coming. That's how that works. So that's my stuff. Thanks, Dick.
That's all that holds a blade on a helicopter? Wow. Okay. Interesting story, Eric, to say the least. Who is the owner of this Purple Heart? Come on up, Lee.
Yes, my mother had.
Hold it up to your mouth, please.
My mother had two brothers that were in World War II. One survived and the other one didn't. He was issued a Purple Heart. Unfortunately, I don't know much about the history. This thing's been all over the country. It came to my family from a complete stranger who I believe was a girlfriend of the brother of this fellow. And he was killed in action, I think about 1943. He was a Missouri farm boy. He was in his early 20s. I don't know where he was killed. I believe he was killed in Italy. But I'm going to have Dick help me do a little research on but I don't know. Got his name on the back. His name was Fred Wayne Lee. Just one of the many that was killed in World War II.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. We have a book up here called Rangers at War. And if I'm not mistaken, come on up, Ken. Ken is a individual that was included in this book, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? So you had your moment of 15 minutes of fame?
Something like that. All right. Yes, in the mid-'70s, Shelby Stanton wrote this book called Rangers at War. It's an anthology of all the Ranger/LRP units in Vietnam. My unit has a section in there, and in that section there is the Army Times. What we call that magazine? Stars and Stripes, yeah. The Stars and Stripes account of me being attacked by an elephant while we were out on an ambush mission, and we heard some rustling in the brush and sounded like about half a dozen VC. And so we all got locked and loaded. I was a machine gunner at one end of the setup, and next thing I know, I look out to my right, and there's this big gray head sticking through the jungle. And she took particular exception to me as opposed to the other 11 people in the team, and commenced to butting me around the jungle like a pinball. She also stepped on 3 Claymore actuators and wounded 3 other members of my team fairly seriously, but nobody died. But that was my claim to fame in Vietnam.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What have we got right here? Grant, come on up.
You hold this right there, and we'll get into it. I come over there. Dick told me I had a minute, but I can't do that.
You're going to have to use your microphone there, partner.
I will. What I brought today is some certificates for my father. He was served in World War II. Basically, I had 6 uncles in World War II, including my father. And some of the things that I got from him, his order to report for induction in 1942. And then he was in the Army Air Force. He got a certificate of appreciation for war service. Fleming Granville C. 3534369, Sergeant. And it reads, I cannot meet you personally to thank you for the job well done, nor can I hope to put in writing words of great hope that I have for you in the success of the future. Together we built the striking force and swept the Luftwaffe from the skies and broke the Germans' power to resist. The brutal might of the striking force was then unleashed upon the Japanese. Although you no longer play an active part, the contributions you made to the Air Force was essential in making this greatest team in the world. The ties were bound under stress. Combat must be broken in peacetime. Together we share the responsibility of guarding our country in the air, and we who never forgot the part that you played in your uniform. We know you will continue to play a pivotal role in civilian life. As we part, let's wish Godspeed and the best of luck for you in your life. Hap Arnold.
Wow. Wow.
The second part, to those who answered the call of your country and served in the armed forces to bring about the total defeat of the enemy, I extend the heartfelt thanks of a grateful nation. As one of the nation's finest, you undertook the most severe task one could be called upon to perform. Because you demonstrated the fortitude, reinforcement, and calm judgment necessary to carry on to this task, we now look for your leadership and example in the future, exalting our country in peace. Harry S. Truman.
Wow.
I have pictures up here of my father, which, needless to say, if you want to come by and take a look at them. Of course, I brought so much stuff, Dick, that it's unbelievable. But anyways, for those of you old enough to remember that basically I got, what is it, major or general? No. All right. A lot of times in the old days in World War II, the parents would hang up this flag like this within the window. This is for my grandmother, from my father, when he was at Chanute Field, Illinois, and he had sent this to her. So it's frayed and beaten, but it hung in that window. My grandmother had basically 4 sons in World War II. Then in the Korean War, since we're talking a little bit about that today, I had two other uncles that served, one in the Air Force and one in the Navy at that point in time. But we come from a proud background of veterans. I had one person who was stationed, one of my great uncles served in World War I. Unfortunately, he got gassed and he died when he was 50 years old, basically. So the Germans got him again, if you will. So thank you very much for that. That's it, my friend.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Dan. Dan, you want to come up here and explain a little bit about your items?
So this board depicts my dad. He was in World War II in the...
You're going to have to hold it up. You're going to have to hold this up. There you go.
He was in World War II from 1943 through 1946 in the Army Air Corps. And he was stationed in the Philippines, Okinawa, and Australia. And so this has his dog tag on it and pictures of him in the Philippines and I think in New Guinea as well. And then when he enlisted, he's standing next to a Women's Army Auxiliary Corps sign. So that's his stuff. I have much, much more of his stuff. This is a picture.
You got to hold your mic up.
This is a picture of my platoon at Fort McClellan, Alabama. I was one of the last graduating classes of Women's Army Corps at Fort McClellan. We graduated in September of 1978, and one of the last female platoon or battalions, headed by, let me get this open here. Brigadier General, at the time, Mary E. Clark. Wow. And she was the commander of Fort McClellan at the time. Superb. And so I graduated in 20 September 1978, and they disbanded WACS October 31st. So that's my stuff. I have pictures of me in here during basic, if anybody wants to look at them. Thank you.
Superb. Thank you. Thank you. You know, for this show and tell, I started to call this Drag and Brag, which I think we'll do next week as well. All right, Ken, tell us about your card.
This here is a DD-214. This is what was issued. It's a legal document, and but it kind of summarizes my service time. And like I said, there's a lot of people who haven't seen these around, but anyway, that's what I brought. And this is the time I spent some time in Korea, of course, in my service time. So, yeah. Thank you.
That was a DD-214?
This is a DD-214.
That's unbelievable that it would have been compressed in such a small card.
Right, yeah. And they claim it's a legal document.
Very interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you for bringing that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about that. We're speaking of this shadow box right here that has 4 full-size military medals in it. Well, as many of you are aware, most federal military awards require that the recipients to have been on active duty for the period the award is earned. There are a few exceptions, such as the Army Reserve Components Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Armed Forces Reserve Medal, and the Army Service Ribbon. However, the Texas Cavalry Medal has the distinction of being the only federal armed forces medal ever approved by the U.S. Congress for a National Guard unit that was actually never federalized. Now you may ask, how did this happen? Well, beginning in 1911, both active duty and federal National Guard units were patrolling our southern border due to the political unrest in Mexico. Also, they were patrolling due to the ongoing raids into the U.S. by Pancho Villa. And only a few years later, they were patrolling due to the knowledge that Germany had funded a plan for a Mexican invasion in order to distract the United States from entering World War I. So, when the U.S. officially entered the war, April 1917, most of our troops patrolling the Mexican border will pull back to their home stations in preparation for their embarkation to the European theater. The Mexican border was then virtually void of security. Now, active duty soldiers, Navy, and federalized guardsmen that served at the Mexican border in that pre-war period of 1911 to 1917 were authorized issuance of the Mexican Service Medal. Then, in December 1917, in the absence of active duty troops in the border, the War Department, under then President Woodrow Wilson, directed the governor of Texas, William P. Hobby, to assemble units of the Texas National Guard to patrol the southern border, thinking the U.S. involvement in the war would last much longer than it actually did. The War Department designated January 2, 1919, as the date for the Texans to enter into federal service. Well, Texas carried out that authorization by raising 2 brigades of cavalry, the 1st and 2nd Cavalry Brigades, each consisting of 3 regiments. This resulted in a total of approximately 350 officers and 7,900 enlisted men that were to patrol the southern border. Beginning on September 25, 1918, the Texas units launched intensive training courses at multiple Army camps near the border. Only 48 days later, the World War II armistice of 11 November 1918 intervened. And the War Department's plans for federalizing the Texans was promptly scrapped. Therefore, the Texas Cavalry Brigades, under the governor's order, were in service for a short period of September 25 to November 11, 1918, 48 days without ever being federalized. Well, for a few folks that happened to serve with the Texans during that 48-day period, this created a dilemma. No service medals for the Texans. What a shame. Everyone should get a medal, win or lose, right? You know, the United States World War I Victory Medal was intended to be the sole federal recognition for World War I service. Actual federal service between 6 April 1917 and 11 November 1918 was a firm requirement for earning the World War I Victory Medal. On this basis, the members of the 2 Texas Cavalry Brigades were not eligible for the World War I Victory Medal or the Mexican Border Service Medal. That happened to be a medal that was issued to active duty troops who served in the pre-war period, 1916 to 1917. Certainly weren't going to be eligible for the Mexican Service Medal that was awarded to U.S. military personnel who served in specific battle actions against Mexican forces or in Mexican waters between 1911 and 1917. Well, enter Colonel William B. Tuttle of San Antonio, who was commander of one of the Texas Cavalry regiments during its organization. Beginning in 1921, following the war, Colonel Tuttle carried out a post-war campaign. He wanted some form of federal recognition for the 2 Texas brigades. And his requests that went through the War Department were denied twice. But with the assistance of a Texas congressman who also championed the cause, a bill was put forth to the United States Congress and was ultimately approved on 16 April 1924, more than 5 years after World War I armistice was signed. Well, the War Department had recommended a veto of the bill, stating that a special medal for the Texans would set a precedent, that several other groups that were not eligible for the World War I Victory Medal might be expected to press similar claims. Specifically, an Arizona National Guard Cavalry Brigade mustered from Douglas, Arizona, to serve on the border. However, that bill was approved, came public law number 91 in the 68th Congress. It's interesting that the Arizona Army National Guard never pursued joining Texas in pursuit of federal awards. There were a quantity of 6,000 Texas Cavalry medals that were procured in spite of previous experience with the World War I Victory Medal, where only half the eligible veterans claimed their medals. Distribution of the Texas Cavalry Medal was handled by the Militia Bureau and began in October 1925. There was surprisingly very, very little interest in that medal. And through April 1937, 840 Texas Cavalry medals had been issued by the Militia Bureau out of 6,000. Well, at that time, the remaining 5,160 were turned over to the U.S. Property and Dispersing Officer of Texas for custody. There they were stored, and any future issues that might be claimed would be awarded from that facility. And today, these highly collectible medals are hidden away in the bowels of a state-owned museum, probably never to be seen again. That happens to be the Texas Military Forces Museum, located at Building 6 at Camp Mabry in Austin, Texas, headquarters now of the 36th Infantry Division. Some time ago, the museum curator, a retired colonel of the Texas Army National Guard and I were well acquainted. And I requested one of the medals for the sole purpose of displaying and relaying the history behind the medal. I offered a donation to the museum, which was accepted. And once I received the medal, I mounted it in a shadow box with the 3 other Federal Service medals that were awarded during the era for service, either on the southern border or during World War I. These include the Mexican Service Medal, the Mexican Border Service Medal, the World War I Victory Medal, and the Texas Cavalry Medal. That is the shadow box that you see here. So needless to say, the Texas Cavalry Medal has a unique history, one of misdirected political influence, and one that could have set a disturbing precedent for qualification of a federal military award. A state award issued through the Texas Military Forces could easily have been justified. In my opinion, the award of the Texas Cavalry Medal may have given birth to the all participants get a trophy culture that we see today. And that is the story. I do have just a couple of announcements that I would like to make. Reach Across America, don't forget that their online auction will terminate on Thursday, July 31. So we only have a few days remaining for that. I do have a copy of that particular announcement. If you are interested and have yet to go online to either do a buy it now or make a bid on one of the items, and there are some great items on here, come up, take a photograph of this so you'll have the address, online address, and then you can go online this weekend and check it out. Also, I am encouraging that you do a little research on a program called Azura Vets Coalition based here in the Valley. Azura offers a variety of much needed comprehensive services for our veterans and their families, especially those that are transitioning from active duty to civilian life. And this particular organization is dedicated to empowering veterans and their families to achieve success and fulfillment following their military careers. They have a program and a promotion on right now called 22 for 22. Again, I suggest you check this out. You can take a photograph of this and you'll have it on your phone for access to that particular website. And finally, please leave your name badges at the greeting desk upon exiting the building. We'll take care of them until you return next week. To our guests, our first-time guests, thank you for joining us today. Certainly hope that you'll return to share in our camaraderie and support for our mission. Please know that you will always be welcome at our Red Friday assemblies. And as a final reminder, let us not overlook the importance of our Red Friday mission to keep our deployed warfighters in our thoughts and prayers and continue to demonstrate our support for these fine men and women. Enjoy your weekend.